name is Sarah Viana. I'm the Strategic Account Manager here at Ameriflex, and I manage the ICUBA benefits directly with the ICUBA team and your HR from your member schools. So I look forward to presenting for you today. And if you have any questions, like Josh said, just put them on in the chat and we'll make sure that we get back to you. All right, so a little bit about our agenda today. We're going to go over brief benefit plan overview. We're going to talk about some of the substantiation and the documentation requests that you might receive from using your Ameriflex cards or submitting claims. We're going to go over some of the Ameriflex online portal features. I'll do a quick demo at the end of this presentation so that you can see all of the options you have available to you on our online portal and our mobile app. In this presentation, I also wanted to include our participant service assistance team so that if you have any questions, because we will share this presentation with you after this call, you'll at least have their direct contact information because we have an entire dedicated participant service team available to you. All right, jumping right into the benefit plan overview. Ameriflex offers 3 different plan types, and not every member school may offer each of these, so please disregard if the name is not familiar to you, but I wanted to make sure I included them all here in this presentation. So the first account that may be familiar to you is the health reimbursement account. It's labeled as an HRA on your portal. This account is available to all participants enrolled under the medical benefit plan. This plan covers medical expenses for the same items that are covered under the 213D classification under flexible spending plans. We also offer the flexible spending plan. It's a pre-tax savings plan to help cover the cost of your medical expenses. And then as well as dependent care, pre-tax savings to help pay for childcare expenses for dependents up to the age of 13 or those that are classified as eligible dependents. And I'll hang right there just to make sure we don't have any questions about the specific plans.
I'm checking and I don't see any specific questions, so you're free to move forward.
All right. Along with each of your plans, you have the ability to get reimbursements using the Ameriflex debit card. So you will receive a blue Ameriflex card in the mail within 7 to 10 business days of your enrollment. Even after enrolling in the plan, if you need another Ameriflex debit card, you can request for one directly through your online portal. Cards are delivered in plain white unmarked envelopes. So just make sure when you know you have a card coming to you that you're keeping an eye out in the mail for that. Myself, I'm one to just throw all of my junk mail in a drawer and come back to it at a later time. So I just wanted to make sure I pointed that out to you. We also have the ability to issue debit cards for dependents that are added to your plans up to the age of 18 years old. So in order to add a dependent, you would want to log into your Ameriflex portal and add them under your profile. I'll be able to show this to you when we get into the demo where you would do this at, but you would add the dependents in there and you have the ability to issue cards for them as well, along with reissuing cards if new cards need to be sent out. You can still add dependents under the age of 13 and have cards issued to them, but the request to have a card issued for a dependent under the age of 13 would need to come over, under the age of 18, would need to come over to our Ameriflex participant service team to have issued for you. That ability is not available through the portal. But we do ask prior to reaching out to us, if you need us to issue a card, that you add that dependent in the portal so they're there and available for us to just issue that card right out for you. These debit cards can also be used if you're enrolled in multiple plans, maybe the HRA and FSA. You will be able to access your plan balances using this debit card. Only one card can access each of your plans.
And Why are cards? Oh, so just a quick point of clarification, and Sarah, this came up in the chat. The language on the slide is a little bit it's a little bit confusing. We'll get that corrected for future versions. Cards can be requested for dependents under the age of 18 in special circumstances, but cards for dependents 18 and older can be requested by adding the dependent to the portal and right in the Ameriflex portal. So there's no special steps needed. The special steps are necessary for those dependents under the age of 18 because there are some niche circumstances where members need cards for underage dependents.
Thank you. We will make sure we get that verbiage updated.
And there is another question. Can we just use our own card for dependent without requesting a new one? That is absolutely possible. You know, in most of your use cases at the doctor's office, paying for those co-pays or those provider visits, you wouldn't need to have a dependent card or have your dependent added to the system. But if you are going to submit any claims for reimbursement, you would need to add that dependent to the system. So if you paid for any expenses out of pocket, you would need to add your dependent. We have a couple more questions. This is a good question that I do not know the answer to. Can one person have two cards issued to them? I'm assuming in the same name.
In the same name, no, we wouldn't be able to issue two cards. But for the cards for dependents, if you have a child off to college or a child living in a separate household, that's why adding the dependent under the age of 18 even, we can issue the card in that child's name. And it can be provided to the child away at school or to another family member to use for them so that it still pulls from the same account.
Perfect. And there is a question in the chat about not receiving your Ameriflex card yet. We have sent the majority. There are maybe a very small number of participants who have not received a card. The best place to check if your card has been mailed out is the Ameriflex portal. If you use the single sign-on, ICUBA single sign-on, or direct access to the Ameriflex portal, which Sarah's going to demo for us later in the presentation, you can check your card, see when it was mailed, and verify that your address is correct. If your address is not correct, you'll need to update it with your school's payroll or HR department, dependent on their protocol for that. If your address is correct, you can request a replacement card on the spot by clicking a little button, which again, Sarah's going to go through and walk us through the portal. But you got to keep an eye out for, I almost trashed mine. It's a plain white envelope. If I wasn't paying attention, I would have put it into the trash with some flyers and other stuff that came in. So do keep an eye out. And one more question. It's dependent related. If you're adding a dependent to the system, a card will not automatically be sent. You would have to request a card for that dependent, and we'll touch on that when Sarah goes through the demo.
All right, so moving on to documentation requests. So whenever you use your Ameriflex debit card, the IRS does require that every transaction rendered through the cards is verified that the service or product being purchased is a benefit eligible expense. So there are a few things that we can do in our system to help alleviate some of the substantiation and document requests that you would need to submit. One of those things is copay matching. So what we have put in our system is all of the copays that are available to you. Giving an example below, you have a primary copay that's $20. If you go to your provider's office and do a debit card swipe for $100 because you have yourself and multiple dependents going to the doctor at the same time that you're going to have a copay for, our system is going to recognize that that card amount that you swiped is a copay matching amount. So it matches up to 5 times of that actual copay dollar amount. So in this example, $20 copay, you're making a $100 purchase. Our system is going to automatically approve that transaction and not request that documentation from you. There's another option that's available, and this one is actually set at the provider level. So different merchants where you're using your card at, pharmacies, doctor's offices, they have a system on their merchant card terminal where you swipe your card. It's called IIAS. What they can do, these are more geared towards pharmacies, but the computer system that they use will verify the transaction, the purchase that you're making, whether it be prescription, over the counter, or any other healthcare eligible expense. Say I went into the pharmacy and I did a $50 purchase, but $5 of that was magazines. So my Ameriflex card will run for that $45 because that payment was eligible healthcare expenses, but the $5, it's going to ask me to provide another form of payment for that $5. So one thing that I like to suggest is when you are going to a pharmacy or somewhere where you're purchasing healthcare eligible expenses, that you use your Ameriflex card first, so the card runs for all of the eligible purchases that you're making. And then the system will tell you what more is needed to be tendered with another form of payment. And then the last item is recurring expenses. So what we have built into our system is, as you go to see doctors, going to the same provider multiple times a month, or throughout your plan year, our system's going to recognize the same provider and same amount that you're being charged on your debit card, so that it will automatically mark those expenses as reoccurring expense. So you won't have to submit documentation after the first time you send your documents in. Again, it has to be for the same provider and same amount charged. If you pay $20 one time, but $25 the other, that won't recognize as a reoccurring expense.
Perfect. And we do have a couple of questions that have popped up in the chat. One is related to recent card swipe for a dollar amount that is not equal to a copay. Say a $34, $44 card swipe at a provider. Those will not automatically substantiate because they don't match a derivative of a copay or a multiple of a copay, correct?
Correct.
So and just to add some perspective to how the plans are set up with Ameriflex, the plans at Ameriflex and their structure with Ameriflex matches our new copay structure with our medical insurance plans. So as of April 1st, all of our medical benefits are no longer co-insurance for primary care, specialist office visits. They're copays. So moving from April 1st forward, if you swipe your card at a doctor's office, it should be for a copay amount. If you're swiping your card at the doctor's office and it's for a co-insurance amount from the prior plan year, there's a couple of things that are going to happen there. One, if you don't have an HRA and you just have an FSA, or you have an FSA and HRA at the same time, you're going to need to provide substantiation for that claim, because FSA expenses for the prior year aren't eligible after April 1st unless you had a rollover balance. The FSA expenses, the FSA funds are used first, and your HRA is used after your FSA funds have been depleted. So when you're swiping your card, if it's not matching a copay, and it is for a prior year expense, you're going to need to submit some documentation to substantiate the claim. Probably an EOB will be your best bet. We got a couple more questions. Will there ever be an occasion where the card will be declined at the time of use? And Sarah, I will let you take that.
Sure, it is possible for the cards to be declined. Sometimes it could be due to an available balance. The cards work a little bit differently than your on-hold claim option. So if you have a invoice from a provider and you need to get reimbursed for it, maybe you paid out of pocket for this invoice. You've already paid the provider, but you have funds available, or you know you're going to have funds available to you in your HRA account. What you want to do is you want to submit that as a manual claim, because as deposits are made into your HRA account, then the system will automatically issue a reimbursement to you. You wouldn't be able to, if you didn't pay out of pocket to the provider, but you wanted to use your HRA account, you wouldn't want to swipe your debit card for it, because the system won't do an on-hold expense with that card. It could also be, there could be multiple scenarios of why there could be a card denial. So usually we try to make denial codes as specific as possible. So you'd be able to view a denial in your transaction history on your portal. So that might help tell you what the denial is for. But if, should you have any questions on the transaction, feel free to reach out to our participant service team. That's what we're here to help. Make sure you're getting the most out of your account and answer any questions that you can.
This is Janelle with ICUBA. I can give a couple of examples. The most common that we see is if you're making a payment over the phone or the internet and some of your information does not match what we have on file. Maybe you're putting in the wrong CVV code. That's a common one. Maybe you're seeing a dentist, but their credit card terminal is registered as maybe retail miscellaneous shop or something like that. Those types of things we may not be. Those are some of the reasons that your card would not be denied. If everyone could mute their lines, please, we'd appreciate it. Those would be some of the reasons that your card may be denied at the point of sale. If you're at like a pharmacy, as Sarah mentioned, and you're buying a health item, it may not be eligible under the plan, or the store may have it coded incorrectly in their IIAS system, or you may simply not have the balance available. But if you have a balance and the merchant's credit card terminal is correct, coded appropriately, and you are making an eligible purchase, that card should not be denied.
And thank you, Janelle. And we do have a few more questions in the chat. Let me just scroll here. Give me one sec. All right, the first question is, if our plan states that we pay the 20% coinsurance, are we going to have to provide substantiation for each transaction? And the short answer to that is most of the time, yes. If the expense is related to coinsurance, dental coinsurance, medical coinsurance, you will need to provide substantiation, but the card will not be declined at the point of sale. The charge will go through and substantiation will be asked for after the charge has been processed. The way that the plans have been set up, that coinsurance for medical is mitigated with the copays. Most of our everyday visits are copay related. And we have one more, we have a few more. If I go to a provider and swipe my card to pay for a copay and it doesn't match, will the card be declined at the point of sale? And the short answer again to that one is no, it will not be declined at the point of sale, but you will be required to provide some documentation to substantiate the difference in the charge at the provider versus the copay. Let's see, we have one question. Can the and this is one that I do not know, but I'm going to assume the answer is no. Can the card be used internationally at a doctor's office?
The card is a MasterCard, so it can be used anywhere MasterCard is accepted, but I do not believe it will work internationally.
Thank you. Another question related to eyeglasses and asking for substantiation. Eyeglasses, dental, and vision are the most common substantiation item requests, especially around eyeglasses, because there are charges and aspects of the exam and services that may not be covered under your FSA or your HRA. So we can absolutely use our funds for those services, but we do have to provide some documentation for those services to verify that all of them are eligible. Again, none of the card swipes are going to be declined at the point of sale unless the merchant doesn't match for some reason, but documentation would be required to validate. Let's see. And is an EOB sufficient documentation is the last question, and that is yes, EOB is sufficient. Also itemized receipts that have those 5 pieces of information will also suffice. Back over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. Okay, so the next slide, we have some frequently requested documentation. So I wanted to put an image on the right-hand side of an itemized receipt that shows all of the required information that would be needed to be sufficient documentation to verify your transaction. The provider's name, the participant or dependent receiving the service is rendered, date of service, and the total amount charged. So again, itemized receipts or explanation of benefits are documentation that can substantiate your transactions, as well as documents that should be submitted with a manual claim. The next item we have on here is a letter of medical necessity. At times, certain expenses may require a letter of medical necessity, more specifically for some therapy or counseling claims. So therapy claims, they are approved and eligible to be paid on the card when they appear on an EOB as considered a medically necessary expense. Sometimes there could be therapy or counseling that doesn't have a medical diagnosis that wouldn't be considered eligible under your benefit plans. We do have a letter of medical necessity as well as an orthodontia contract, the next item down. We have templates for these that can be provided and available to you to help submit over to us. What we would do is have you have that document completed by your provider, send it over to us, and what we would do is notate your account that we have this information on file. It's been reviewed and approved by our claims team. And then that way, when you have any additional expenses for what the specific contract or letter is for, our claims team will review that upon your next transactions and automatically help to approve those transactions. So that's another item that will help you get those auto approvals. And then the final one is setting up a recurring dependent care claim. So this is what I always suggest when participants are enrolled in the dependent care plan. So you do your enrollment for an annual election, and I always suggest to submit a manual claim to us for your entire annual election at the beginning of your plan year, if possible. You can also use your debit card to make payments towards your daycare providers if that's a method that you prefer. But with the dependent care plan, if you submit a claim to us, you can either have your provider sign off on the actual claim form. It'd be a paper claim form, of course, that way. But if they sign off on the claim form and provide their tax ID number, you can submit that claim form itself without any additional receipts. And what we can do is we can put that claim in our system, but place it on hold. So it's similar to the HRA plan. So the dependent care balances are available to you as contributions are made. So with this claim submitted and approved in our system, we will automatically issue reimbursement out to you for your entire plan year every time a deposit is made into your account. So it's kind of like a set it and forget it plan where you don't have to submit any additional documentation throughout the plan year. If they didn't sign the claim form, you would just want to ask them for a contract from your daycare provider showing services rendered, who they're being rendered for, and what the monthly amounts would be. All of the 5 information here, and submit that with your claim. You can submit that directly through the portal to us, and we would do the same process, place it on hold, and release payments as they are available to you. If you have a nanny or a personal babysitter, you still can use your dependent care claim for those individuals as well. What you would want to do, because I know sometimes you might not get this itemized receipt or be able to get a contract from them, you can use our manual claim form and have them put their name and their social security number, if they have a company, their tax ID number on there, sign the claim form as the provider, and submit that over to us for the same reimbursement.
Thank you, Sarah. There was a question that popped up in the chat regarding navigating claims from the prior plan year when an FSA and HRA are both in play. And we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I'll just take a couple of minutes to explain and allow Sarah and the rest of the team to add in any additional information. When you do have unpaid claims from the prior plan year and you want to submit for reimbursement, using the card it's automatically going to ask you for documentation because that coinsurance amount doesn't match a copay. And because you've swiped the card, the FSA balance that's being used is your new plan year FSA balance. So when you provide that documentation, it's not going to match the FSA plan year. So the best way to navigate those claims for using prior year FSA funds is to submit them manually in the system and select the applicable FSA plan year. And when Sarah goes through the demo, she'll walk us through some of the claim process and give a better idea of how to do that.
Perfect. So I am just going to proceed here. The next thing we'll talk about is the portal features and then get into our demo. So right here, I wanted to add a slide because we have our online Ameriflex portal that you can access directly through the computer, or we also have our mobile app that you can download on your smartphones. So I wanted to show you that here so that you have a picture of what the mobile app looks like if you go to look for that in Google Play or in the App Store. It's a free mobile app that's available to you to download and get set up. You can do your registration right through the mobile app. It's not a registration that you have to do online first if you're going direct through our website. And then a few things that we'll talk about in the online portal, how to view your balance, how to track your spending, submit documentation, submit claim reimbursements, add dependents, order replacement cards, and then I'll also show you where you can access our help center, and then you have available to you access to FSA eligible products as well as a direct link to the FSA store. It's a store that you can use, go on site to and purchase FSA eligible expenses. And then the last slide in here real fast, like I said earlier, is just our service operational hours and contact information for our service team. actually, I don't have the contact information in here, but I will update that and before we get this sent out to you all. That way you have that information right here on one slide.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions before we move into the portal demo?
We did have one additional question in the chat regarding eligible purchases with the card, and a member wants to know if their Medicare premiums can be paid with their card, or would that be a claim?
Yes, they can pay their Medicare premiums using their card. What that'll do is it'll come through as an insurance provider merchant. So you'll be able to see that. One thing we are noticing right now is you are able to use your Ameriflex card to pay for any premiums if anyone is also on Cobra, but I'm not sure if anyone is on this call, but you can use your card to pay for that as well. All right, so I'm just going to flip screens real fast and hopefully this doesn't log me out. Okay, can everyone see?
I just had a quick question.
Sure.
Are advanced imaging fees also able to be used by the card?
They should be able to. The service that's being rendered depends on the provider.
Mm-hmm.
So the cards are registered off of merchant category codes. So if you have, radiology, or if it's through a hospital, the card's reading the hospital or the provider's code that they have set up on their terminal. So it should be available on the debit card, but it would be dependent on that specific merchant code.
Okay, perfect.
All right. So, Josh, can you let me know if you can see the portal on
Absolutely.
my screen? All right, perfect. So I am logged into our participant benefits. The right side of my screen is the online portal and the left side is the mobile app. I'm going to have the two of them working hopefully simultaneously next to each other. But you can see a lot of the information on the mobile app is very similar to our online portal. That way you're not, if you're using both sites, you're not having to figure out how to use two different portal services. But on the online portal, the menu bar is right across the top. And then on the mobile app, you'll use these three lines on the side to access the same information on the menu bar. So I am just going to go right down the line on the menu bar. So home obviously will get you to the same home screen that we just signed into. It'll download, you'll be able to see all of your transactions on your main screen, and then all of the accounts that are currently, balances that are currently available to you. And then one of the key items at the top is to file a claim. We wanted to make this as accessible as possible. So you have the option to file a claim to pay yourself back because you paid for expenses out of pocket. Or if you have an invoice where the payment is due to the provider, you also have the ability to pay your provider directly. So if you were to select this option, you would enter in the provider's information based off of that invoice. And what we would do is process the claim and send a check payment directly to that provider. All of our claims, once submitted, are claims processing time frame for claims and for documentation review is 3 to 5 business days from the date that you submitted it. So once you make a submission for a claim or for documentation, your transaction may not show approved or get an additional status right away other than processing or submitted. That's what the two statuses would be. I will come back to the help option and shop FSA store next because those will take me to different links. So I don't want to get locked out of our portal here. But our more option with our drop down is where you can access information pertaining to your account setup. So you have your profile here where you would be able to view all of your information. As Josh said, you'll want to make sure, if you're requesting a new card or you maybe didn't receive your card, that we have all of your address information accurate. You have the ability to change your email address in here. All you do is just click save once updated. And I'm so sorry if you hear my dog in the background.
It's okay.
He knows it's dinner time. So right in here in the family section is where you can add your eligible dependents. So right in here, one at a time, if you have multiple, you would add their information. Dependent type, we have the different options to choose from. And then you also have the ability to add them to your HRA plan if you have multiple plans in our system. By not selecting this, their debit card would not be linked to the HRA. So when you are adding a dependent, you would want to make sure you're adding that selection as well. That way they can use their card towards the HRA. Once you enter your dependent, another screen will pop up with their name, and you'll have the option to issue them a debit card right in that screen as well. And then, of course, we still also have the debit card option for you to go back once everyone's entered into the system. If you need a new card for yourself, a new card for your dependent, you can go right in this section and just select the family member that you need the card for and then issue the new card. Again, cards take about 7 to 10 business days to be received in the mail once issued, once you select this issue new card.
And there was a question earlier in the presentation about verifying if your card has been sent. Can you see the mail date in in this portal? Can you see that your card was issued, or only request a new card?
You would only be able to request a new card, but as long as you have your name listed here, that means the card has already been issued to you. Perfect.
So if your name is there and the option to issue a new card is available, that means that a card has been mailed. And in order to verify that your address is correct, you would just double check your profile information in the system. And there was a question that popped up about can we change the PIN on the debit card?
So typically our debit cards are used as credit, so you don't need to use the PIN. You would have to, I believe, reach out. You know, I will follow back up on that question with you, Josh, about how to change a PIN number. We always suggest using it as a credit and not a PIN. So let me get back to you on that.
You got it.
I will just, this is Janelle with ICUBA, Sarah. I will just piggyback on our prior experience with the PINs. What we found when you're in pharmacies and things like that, that PIN is, that Durbin PIN is not on the IIS network. So we found that when you're using that card, you always get flagged for a receipt request. So I would suggest, as Sarah said, if you're able to use it as a credit, always use the card as a credit card.
Thanks, Janelle. That's good information. I'm going to try that next time I use my card and see what happens. But whenever I put my card in the terminal, because I think they do have, no, they don't have the chip on them. When I swipe my card, it doesn't even ask me that I've noticed debit or credit. It just automatically runs through the system. All right. And then in this more option is where you'll have the option to change your reimbursement setting. So as soon as you are enrolled in our system, your reimbursement setting is automatically defaulted to check. So if you were to submit a manual claim with us, you would get a check sent to you in the mail. So whenever you create your online portal access, if you have access to a bank account, we do strongly suggest setting up direct deposit if that's something that you would be interested in doing, because as soon as we issue a reimbursement to you, those funds are sent to your bank account within 1 to 2 business days as soon as a claim is approved. So instead of waiting for it to get the check in the mail, getting it through the mail, because we know how long the mail takes sometimes anymore, and then depositing it into your account, you know, it'll already be in your account within 1 to 2 business days of your claim being approved. So this is where you can update that information. And then you always have the ability to change it back to check if you wanted to or needed to remove your bank information for any reason.
Perfect.
The other option that you also have the ability to change on your personal account is all of the notifications that you'll get. Having your email address on file, we do send out notifications pertaining to your account just to keep you in the loop if you're not always going into your Ameriflex portal. You'll get information if you did request an address change, a new debit card. This way, for security purposes as well, if you may not have made that request, you'll at least get that alert so that you can reach out to us and we can look into what occurred, how any information may have been updated on your account, as well as information pertaining to your plan year, low balance alerts, items of that nature. Claims processed and approved. This way you'll know for sure and you don't have to keep checking back into your account. You have the ability to uncheck these if you prefer not to get those communications.
Sarah, we did have a question pop up in the chat about dependents being able to access the portal. Is it limited to employees or are dependents able to create an account?
It is just limited to employees.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so moving into actually looking at your accounts. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select the flexible spending account for now. I'm going to hit more details and this will pull up more information about my account. It's going to show me my available balance, my run out periods and grace periods, because a reminder for those that have the flexible spending plan, you do have an extended time period to continue using your available balance, and then a final run out period to submit manual claims for services rendered within that plan year. It'll also show you your elected amount for the year, as well as what you've contributed and used thus far. So we have it really broken down for you. For those participants that maybe were enrolled in the prior plan year that was had with WEX and had funds left over, you do still have the ability to look at those account balances as well. If we've loaded funds or you've submitted transactions through us for that prior plan year, so the 4/1/2021 plan year, what you would do, I didn't add any plans into this demo, but you would just click this option and you would be able to flip between plan years. So this one shows current, you'd be able to see all of your prior years. So as the years progress and we continue to do new enrollments together, you'll have the ability to refer back to each of your prior plan years. And then they all look the same. You have all of those same plan options for each plan. And then down below is where you'd be able to filter down through your actual transactions by account type. And then as well as by either card transactions or manual claims, transactions that need attention. So those that have substantiation requests, this way, if you have a few requests, you'll be able to filter down your portal and look at it easier rather than having to thumb through the entire plan history.
Thank you, Sarah. There was a question that popped up in the chat about seeing prior plan year history in the Ameriflex portal. And one of the things that we were unable to do is to bring over account history from our prior administrator. So the only time that you would see a prior account is if you had a balance carry forward from the FSA account for the prior plan year or the DCA, the dependent care account from the prior plan year. Otherwise, your health reimbursement account starts 4/1/2022. The FSA and DCA accounts would be the only areas that you would see prior accounts. If you didn't have a balance in one of those accounts when we made the transition, then you wouldn't see it in the Ameriflex portal now.
Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, so these are all of the options to the portal. What I wanted to go back up to show you was you'd be able to access our online help center. What we do is we have a group of team members that works very closely at reviewing transaction history, reviewing what participants and employers reach out to us to ask questions on. So we try to really make a very helpful help center. So if you maybe have a question that you want to look for the answer to, you can go into our help center and search maybe like one sentence of something. If you're looking about a claim, you can search claim and it'll pull up a lot of information pertaining to claims. But in this help center option, you have access.
Folks, please do me a favor and make sure that you're muted.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Josh. So we have our contact us, all of our hours of operation and phone number. We have this option for resources where you can view a list of items considered eligible. You can also access that here under the Shop FSA store. Forms is where you can access any of those forms that I talked about, the claim form, letter of medical necessity, orthodontic contracts. You can access it right through that section. And you can also go right to our website, right in this help center. And then this is what I really wanted to show was the FSA eligible expense table. This is pulled from the FSA store, but this is a really great tool that I refer back to probably on a daily basis when I get emails from clients. And I think it might have been Hillary that asked the question if the specific service being rendered or expense is eligible. You can use this table to search by alphabetical order what you're interested in looking into, and it'll pull up all of the details and it color codes it for you, telling you if it's eligible with a prescription, with a letter of medical necessity, or if it's not an eligible expense. So you'll be able to see that all in here. It's a really great table. Like I said, I've been using it pretty frequently, and it is updated on a regular basis as well, as the IRS may make changes to eligible expenses.
Yeah, that's one of the things that was asked in the prior session, if we could provide an actual list of these expenses. And because they are subject to change, there isn't really a physical list that exists anywhere, but this is probably one of the best resources for double checking and verifying if an expense is eligible. And it'll, like Sarah mentioned, it'll break it down color coded by type and type of eligibility.
And then we also have a link to the actual FSA store where this is pulled from also. So if you didn't remember to access it from our website, you could go right to fsastore.com. And this site provides lots of eligible expenses. It provides lots of items that are really helpful, and it'll tell you if an expense is FSA eligible. So I want to try to pull something up here. To click on Band-Aids, even though that'll be the easiest one to tell us. But right under where you would add it to your shopping cart, the system will tell you if this product is FSA eligible. So, if you're searching through the site and you see something, especially at the end of the plan year, a lot of people, some people may have money left over because they elected more than they really spent for that year. So instead of losing access to some funds, even with your grace period, you can go right onto this store and purchase items as long as you're still in the plan year.
Excuse me?
Please don't forget to stay muted, folks.
But you can purchase items right through here, and you can pay using your Ameriflex debit card. And that is all of the options to our portal. Did I Does anyone want to see anything else? Oh, one thing I wanted to mention, in the transaction history, you'll be able to see claims, you'll be able to see card transactions. Because this is a test account, I don't have a debit card issued for it, so I don't have card transactions in here. But if you were being requested to substantiate a transaction, the status right here where it says approved will indicate waiting for documentation. So that will allow you to know that you need to submit either an EOB, explanation of benefits, or an itemized receipt over to us. So what you'll be able to do is click right into that transaction and then upload your document right into that transaction. What we've been able to do with the system is when you use your debit card, right away, your transaction is going to show in your history. So if you're at your provider's office and you make a payment using your debit card and immediately get an itemized receipt from them, instead of holding on to it, waiting for the authorization from your card to see if you need to submit documents, you can upload it immediately into your transaction. You can use your mobile app and take a picture of your receipt and then click on your transaction in your app and go right into upload your documentation. Once you do that, the status will change from approved to processing. So then we'll have your documentation to review. So if you were to receive a substantiation request for that, you won't receive that email because we'll have already received those documents from you. So you're beating us to the punch there, getting it over to us right away.
Hey, Sarah, we had a request to go over ordering additional cards one more time. It came up a couple of times. And then we do have a couple of additional questions. So if you would pop back over to the additional cards section.
Sure. So under more and then debit cards. Again, you would want to make sure that you have all of your dependents already in the system. So you would select between family member that you need to issue the card for, and then just select issue card.
So just for everybody's edification, in order to request an additional card for a dependent, you do have to add them into the portal. And if you would mind, thank you, profile. Under profile, there's a little family box. Click add a dependent, enter the dependent details and add that dependent. Once you save that dependent, you'll be able to go back into the section under more for debit cards and request a debit card for that dependent. They're not automatically sent when you add a dependent to the account.
Josh, this is Janelle. I just wanted to point on one additional thing that was just on the screen, Sarah. If you could go back to adding that dependent, you'll notice here a box is that this dependent should have access to the HRA plans. So if you're ordering a card for a dependent and you just want them to access the FSA, then you would not click that box. I just want to point that out. Thank you.
Perfect. And we did have a couple of additional questions. Let's see here. This is a good one, and this has come up a few times related to accessing the mobile app and the portal. The login for the mobile app and the portal are not the same as the login for your ICUBA single sign-on. So if you haven't already set up an account, you'll need to use that single sign-on to get into your account and create your username and password and just update your profile before you can log in. Or when you log in, make sure that you use an email address that is different than your work email address, and put your demographic information in there. You can use your social, or you can use the card number to register for a new account, but the same password and username will not work for the ICUBA single sign-on portal. And let's see, what document types are accepted for uploaded, i.e. JPEG, PDF, and I believe you can You can snap a picture with your phone. PDF, Word documents are also acceptable. Sarah, could you elaborate?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. And one question that came in, what if we do not check the HRA box for dependents? How do you change it? I believe that you can just go back into the dependent profile and check the box. It should be there for dependents. If it's not, you may need to reach out to participant services to have it added, but that box should be there if you edit the dependent. And an additional question came in. We'll go over it briefly, but it is kind of a long topic. The difference between the FSA and the HRA primarily is that the HRA is funded by your employer, and those funds are only available for you and dependents who are covered under your medical insurance plan. The FSA is funded by us as participants, as employees. Don't forget to mute your mics, folks. The FSA is funded by us as employees, participants in the plan on a pre-tax basis. And those funds can be used for any eligible dependent in our household. They don't have to be covered under our medical insurance plan in order to be eligible dependents. So the HRA funds are limited to eligible members covered under your medical insurance plan. The FSA funds can be used for eligible dependents in your family. And let's see, there are a couple. I mentioned that you can't use your work email address. I only mentioned that because I think that there were a couple of issues where folks had set up their account in the single sign-on and it created an issue. So you may be able to use your work email address with no problem. In case you do have an issue, just have a backup in handy. And let's see, there is another question here for the mobile app. Does the individual need to register as a new user? And the answer to that is if you've already registered in the web portal, you will not need to register as a new user for the mobile app. But if you are downloading the mobile app, you will need to, without having created a web account, you will need to register as a new user. And Sarah, we just got confirmation, a couple of folks checked that they cannot change the HRA dependent status in the system.
To add
them as HRA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you would want to send an email to our participant service team to get them added if they weren't already, but I will look to see if it's possible for us to adjust that option.
That's awesome. And what I just would like to take a couple of quick seconds and just highlight the amount of effort that the Ameriflex team has put into helping us get everything transitioned over from our previous administrator and get everything in the system. We've been working through individual issues and challenges for participants diligently over the last few weeks, and they have been a fantastic partner so far. They've been very eager and willing to help when it comes to getting us set up and ready to go for the rest of the plan year and the next several years. So if you do have any issues or anything comes up, please let us know. We'll be happy to work through them, make sure that we get everything worked out to the best of our ability and keep everything running smooth. And last but not least, I know everybody is eager for the $10 rally incentive information. You can scan this QR code, and I'm going to put let me just make sure I have it. There we go. I'm going to put the link to the survey directly in the chat, so you can open up the chat feature and click on that link. If you don't get it, I will share it with everyone in the next couple of days. I have to pull down all of the registration information, and I'll share that after. I appreciate all of you for attending. I'm grateful that you were here with us today, and I appreciate all of your questions. If we didn't get to any of them, just a couple of minutes, I will open up the floor. I know that there were a lot of questions